Okay, and you gave yourself a driver's license?
No.
What did you-
Jesus gave me the license.
Okay, got it.
Yes, you would.
All right, Exhibit G is admitted. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at Exhibit G,
Exactly.
and that says no birth certificate,
Right,
no passport,
right, it does say that. Yeah.
no consular card.
But, oh, the original in parentheses, what does that original refer to, that or that?
No passport, right?
Oh, okay, but it says original in parentheses.
Okay.
Yeah. So see, all
yes, it says no passport, right?
I was always
Hey.
able to do is show them.
That's-
All right, hold on.
Whoa,
If you want to
whoa.
just, all right, let me stop you there. If you want to just publish it, just tell it what it says.
Yeah.
It's exhibit, you can publish it, you can just read from that document.
See, he gets irritated, Judge.
I'm not
You
here.
have that effect on many people, I think Mother Teresa would be.
No consular card, no social security card, no proof of address, out-of-state standard ID card, and different out-of-state plates, right? All that was indicated.
But that parentheses means that I didn't have the
That's,
original.
it's a yes or no question, sir.
Which question? Give a repeat, please.
All right, the court will note, it does say no birth certificate, no passport, in parentheses, original, no consular card, no, and second line, no SS card, what I'm assuming is social security card, no proof of address, out-of-state standard ID, and different out-of-state plates. That is what unsatisfactory documents, that is Exhibit G, which has been admitted at this time. All right?
Thank you, Your Honor. So then we have States Exhibits 2, 3, and 4. States Exhibit 2 or 3 here. You're familiar with this, right?
That's a picture of my passport, driver's license.
Okay. As well as you said you had a duplicate, right?
Right.
That's contained here in States Exhibit 2.
One had a different cover than the other. That's how you can tell them apart. No. The other one's gray. One's black, one's gray. You got two copies of the same thing.
Okay. Would you agree that you had 2 copies of the same thing?
Well, actually, in point of fact, because I signed both, they're two originals.
Okay. You would agree that you signed both of these?
Yeah, well, not those, but the originals.
The originals,
Yeah.
what's documented in here, right?
Right,
What's photographed.
exactly. Yeah,
Right,
to be precise.
right. And where did you get these?
Made those.
Where'd you make them?
Combination of the computer, home computer, and I don't know if it was Kinko's FedEx then, but Kinko's FedEx, yeah.
Okay. And so you made yourself an ambassador?
No. God made me an ambassador. He
Oh,
called me to this thing,
okay.
and
And,
his son.
and you indicated that that's of the Kingdom of Israel.
Yes,
And you also indicated that you've never been to the Kingdom of Israel
I have not.
because it does not currently physically exist.
No, that's not why I've not been there. It does physically exist.
You indicated that the Kingdom of Israel is currently occupied by the state of Israel, right?
It's a stewardship. They're being held as a stewardship. God is waiting for those people to cry out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." When Jesus comes, then he will establish that as the kingdom. So it's still there, but it's under the surface of that state of Israel, which does not recognize the Messiah or the Christ yet, but they will.
Okay. And the Kingdom of Israel existed up until about 930 BC, right?
No, it still exists today.
But there's no government.
No, I would
There's no-
disagree with that statement too.
There's no state, right?
No, but Jesus exercises authority over there. He allows a lot of wicked things to go, but it still exists. He moves, God moves in mysterious ways.
Okay.
If you read your scriptures, you'd know
All
this.
right, you guys, can we get into this century?
So you created these documents at your house.
God gave me the ability to create those, I would clarify.
Okay. And you gave yourself a driver's license.
No,
What did you-
Jesus gave me the license.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Mr. Dickerson, I don't know, do you mind, or you use any more? If not, I want, give me exhibit 5. I don't know if you're gonna use it or not, I think that's the one I want. You are exhibit 5. Thank you.
Thank you. And then this document here, what is State's Exhibit 4, was tucked into one of those folders,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And this is a certified document from the municipal court of Boulder City, that you have, right? And there, you had an agreement with a city attorney in Boulder City that if you were to send him a copy of your driver's license,
You would dismiss that charge.
and that was supposed to be a valid driver's license, right?
No, it is a valid driver's license. And Gary Booker, the city attorney, accepted this as that. He followed through with his end. The taillight was blown out, and I did pay a sum to the city for that. Well, I didn't pay it, somebody else paid it.
Who paid it?
I think my mom or dad, but technically, they remitted some counterfeit money. That's another issue.
You'd agree that that document that you sent to the city attorney is one of these two documents that's located here in
No.
State's Exhibit 2 and 3?
It's a copy of the original page, those two pages, that open face page.
Okay.
It was just a copy of that. That's all he requested. He said, fax me that, we'll dismiss this, and he did follow through.
And those documents are the copy that you provided him as well, were not issued by any state within the United States of America. Correct?
You want an objection? Why don't you?
What is going on here?
Can I consult with my attorney?
No.
No, you're testifying right now.
Can I
So
object to
he
that
is-
as a phrase?
He's asked
Can I
you,
object, Judge?
no, you may not, well, your attorney can object, it's cross-examination, well,
I don't know, I mean, I believe he wants an objection, Your Honor, so I'm gonna go on the record as saying objection. I don't know if I can, maybe he can explain what his.
The way that question is phrased,
as to what, how is it?
What's the problem?
if I were sitting in his place, I would say, objection asked and answered.
It hasn't been asked,
I
Your Honor.
don't think it's been asked.
Well,
So
repeat the question
all right,
then.
The question's real simple, guys, right?
Repeat the
The
question.
question is, did you produce it, right?
Yeah, well, number one, he says he produced it, but then number two, these were not produced or given to you by any state in the United States.
Just say objection, Tim.
Objection.
What's the problem?
What's the issue, were they or were they not?
I told him just a minute, it was ask and answer, because I told him just a minute ago, God gave me the ability to do it. I did it through FedEx and Kinko, so it's been asked and answered.
No, it hasn't been answered. Yeah, the question is, it was not produced by, wasn't produced by any agency or governmental agency of the United States. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's what you want.
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Right. You don't have a valid driver's license, right?
The originals are a valid driver's license from another country.
A country that doesn't exist.
It does exist.
Okay. You don't have a Nevada driver's license.
I testified to that.
That's a no, you don't have a Nevada driver's license.
That's true. I used to have one.
Okay. You don't have a driver's license from any other United States state or territory.
Used to have an Arizona license, but not any longer.
And you didn't have one in 2022 when you were pulled over, right?
You're talking about the subject we're related
On
to?
September 16, 2022, you didn't have any driver's license from any state or territory in the United States. Is that
No, I
right?
had a driver's license from the Kingdom of Israel, and that's what you've entered, so.
Okay. Understood.
Any further questions, Mr. Biggs?
No, Your Honor, I'm
All
not
right.
past witness.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Blandino.
Yes, sir.
Exhibit 6 that was admitted previously at the.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Exhibit 6 that
Okay.
was admitted previously at the other hearing. This is your writings on Exhibit 6, is that correct?
I believe it's a copy of my writings,
So it's a copy of a document that you filled out, correct?
right?
and it's for the Division of Parole and Probation monthly report, correct?
right,
The month is 8th, which would be August
right,
2022, correct?
right,
In there, you indicate your employer is Home Health Care for Evie, correct?
is the best I could answer.
Is that what it says there? Home Health Care for Evie, your employer, correct?
Yeah.
All right,
I
and
shouldn't
that was-
I probably should not have used that word employer.
All right, but that was what we had talked about. Evie is, for the records, Evelyn
Pendergrass.
and Evelyn Pendergrass, is that the one that we referred to that you were just talking about, correct?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Any follow-up questions on that,
No,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Dickerson? Any follow-up questions, response to that, Mr. Blandino from the court's question?
Yes, I probably should not have put employer. I wanted to use a word they can understand, but there was no gainful employment. This was not gainful employment. My beliefs, as testified earlier, is that I must love my neighbor as myself. I must plead for the widow, seek righteous judgment, and so God put her in my path and gave me to take care of her, and that is what I did. I
Okay.
had her power of attorney for healthcare and power of attorney for other things, and
All right.
she considered me a great blessing in that regard, and the parole probation wanted, as part of my amended judgment of conviction, I was required to follow the parole and probation's directives.
All right, thank you very much. You
Okay.
can sit down now, sir. Thank you very much.
I am sitting down. You mean sit down over
Go
there?
back down there, yes.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Gersten,
Yes,
any
sir.
further at this time?
I could have 20 seconds to confer with my client. Your Honor, we have nothing further. We would rest at this time, just obviously pending
All
our
right.
closing
Yes.
arguments.
Yeah, we're gonna have those exhibits submitted in as court exhibits.
We'll have one rebuttal. We'll call Kenneth Mead.
And Mead?
Yeah.
Yes. You got there?
He's coming.
The officer.
So,
All right.
You understand?
Mr. Mead?
Yes, Judge.
Come take the stand. What's on the stand, remain standing, raise your right hand, face the clerk to be sworn.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please be seated. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Kenneth Mead, Kenneth, last name Mead.
Thank you.
thank you.
Morning, Judge.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I am a retired Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detective, and I currently work for the Department of Homeland Security.
All right. And how long did you work for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department?
Just shy of 26 years.
And during that time, did you at any point work for the counterterrorism section?
Yes, sir.
And in your role in the counterterrorism section, did you specialize in any type of ideology?
Well, I specialize in domestic terrorism, more specifically militia type ideology, sovereign citizen ideology.
Okay. During the course of your employment there, did you become familiar with an individual by the name of Blandino?
Yes, sir.
And do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you please point to him, identify a piece of clothing that he's wearing?
Yes, sir. Gentleman over here wearing the maroon ascot and a gray suit.
And when was it that you first approximately came to be familiar with Mr. Blandino?
I would say that I was aware of Mr. Blandino probably about 2012-ish timeframe.
Okay. And during that time, did you become aware of where Mr. Blandino was living?
At some point I did, yes.
Okay. Do you recall when approximately it was you became aware of where he was living?
I think once we officially maybe confirmed it, I think it would have been probably about 2016.
Okay. And do you recall where it was that you were able to determine he was living?
Yes.
And where was that?
It would have been at 441 North 16th Street. Which
Here
is,
in Las Vegas, Clark County, Nevada?
yes, sir.
Okay. And did you have the opportunity to ever see Mr. Blandino at that residence?
Several times, yes.
Okay. Between what years?
Probably 2016 until just prior to my retirement, so 2023-ish.
Okay, so you had seen him at the residence throughout those years?
Yes,
I'm sorry, you say 2016?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir, at the residence, coming and going from the residence,
Okay.
vehicle at the residence.
And on May 29th, 2019, did you have the opportunity to take part in the service of a search warrant at that residence, 441 North 16th Street?
Yes, sir.
And during the service of that warrant, was there a truck that was located on that residence?
I don't know if I would categorize it as being on the residence, but related to the residence, yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you a couple things here. May I approach, Ron?
You may. You seen the exhibits, Mr. Gersten? Have you not, you've not seen them?
He just flashed them, I've never seen them before.
That's,
But again, they're pictures, so let's see where we go, I guess.
did you want to look at them while they're going through it? Go ahead.
So this would be stage proposed 7, 8, and 9. Looking at these items, sir, do you recognize what you're looking at?
Yes, this would be the front of the residence to that 441 North 16th Street address.
Okay. And do you recognize these from the time of the service of the search warrant?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with that vehicle that's located in there?
I'm familiar with that vehicle, and I believe there's a second vehicle involved as well.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm going to object. This is rebuttal. I don't know what they're rebutting. They're showing pictures of a vehicle at a residence that Mr. Blandino said he was living at.
Okay, well,
So what's the rebuttal? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm going to give Mr. Dickerson a little leeway because if he ties it up that it's the vehicle in question that was stopped on September 16, 2022, that may have an issue.
Okay.
I mean, if it's not, then obviously.
I mean, Mr. Blandino has testified that he was living at that house.
No, he said vacationing, I'm vacation,
Yeah, but he testified he had a room. I mean, that's what he testified to, so I don't know where the rebuttal is, again.
Well, I think the state is trying to confirm that there was a residency, if you will. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
So,
that's what we're trying to get to, I'm assuming. So I'll allow it to be said, I'll allow him to go forward if he ties it up.
thank you. So you indicated that there was that vehicle that was there on the residence, and then there was another vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And again, Your Honor, objection. He did not say, he actually corrected Mr. Dickerson, said, I wouldn't say it was on the residence, it was related to, and he's going back to that, so.
Okay, so let's talk what he means by related, because he did say it was related to the residence. What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, there was a vehicle that was always in the driveway, and then there was another vehicle that was parked in the curtilage just on the sidewalk in front of the residence.
And again, Your Honor, I'm gonna ask that be stricken. Always, how does he know I mean, I guess I can say that for cross, but what does always mean?
Define what you mean by that.
Every time that I was there, I saw the vehicle.
That's what I'm assuming you would say. Okay, so we have that, go ahead.
Okay, and the vehicle that was in the driveway was a pickup truck with Montana plates, is that right?
Yes, sir.
The vehicle that's parked on the curb out front of the house generally, or always,
Yes, sir.
that vehicle, are you familiar with that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And was that a white Dodge Ram?
I believe it was. I know it was a white, larger pickup truck, and it had Montana plates as well.
Okay. And on September 16, 2022, you went out to a traffic stop that Mr. Blandino had been stopped at, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was related to a stop that Officer Martinez and Officer Neeson had committed.
Yes, sir.
The vehicle that was there that had been stopped, did you recognize that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And what vehicle was that?
That was the Dodge, I guess, Ram. I don't know the model, but it was the Dodge pickup truck that was every time that I had been in front of the house, was always parked in front of the residence, and with the woman that also had the Montana plates.
Okay, and it had the same Montana plates that you'd seen before in May of 2019?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you served the search warrant within the residence, did you locate anything indicating whether Mr. Blandino was residing in the residence?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, calling for an expert conclusion, or I should say, I'm sorry, a legal conclusion. He's asking if he was a resident.
No, I'm not. I'm
You
actually.
just did, you said resident.
If we could
Residing.
just tailor the question to what did you find there that regard that, because he can say it's an envelope addressed to Mr. Blandino at that residence. He can say what he found there.
So what, if anything, do you recall finding within the residence related to Mr. Blandino?
Well, one, there was a roommate in the residence.
And who was that?
Evie,
Evelyn Pendergrass?
yes.
Okay.
She was in the residence, and then when we made entry into the residence, I believe once you go into the right, there was a room that we attributed to Mr. Blandino that had mail to him, hundreds of documents that had his name on it. There was a bed, there was clothing, there was a suit that we had previously seen him in court wearing, consistent with, again, somebody living there at that residence.
Okay. And consistent with that person being Kim Blandino?
Yes, sir.
And was there any other roommates at the residence besides Evelyn Pendergrass?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Do you have an approximation of how many times you've seen Mr. Blandino from 2016 to 2023 there at that residence at 441 North 16th Street?
Probably between, if I estimate, 15 to 20 times.
Okay. We'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination, Mr. Gersten.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to call you Mr. Mead, but you said you work for the Homeland Security now?
I do, sir,
Are you in
yes.
1811, or are you something else?
I am not, I'm something else.
Okay, what are you, just so I can refer to you?
A regional prevention coordinator.
Okay, so, Mr. Coordinator, you said initially you said you saw Mr. Blandino several times at that location.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then you said it was 15 to 20 times.
Yes, sir.
All right, so several is, you went from several to 15 to 20 in the scope of your testimony.
I think it's a semantical argument about what several.
Right, exactly, it is a semantical argument. You said several, and then you said several means 15 to 20. And I just want to make sure, when you say several, you mean 15 to 20.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. You said you saw Mr. Blandino, I think you used the term coming and going.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
I would see him coming and going in the vehicle. I would see him coming and going on his bicycle.
You had him under surveillance?
There were times that he was under surveillance,
Okay.
but there was also times that we would spot check the residence because it was associated to other cases.
Okay. Okay. Excuse me, Your Honor, I just need to compose myself for a second. Okay, Coordinator Mead, was there any time that you went to that residence and did not see Mr. Blandino?
Meaning go actually inside the residence, or?
No, again, you said you saw him coming and going. Was there any time that you were surveilling at the residence, whatever you want to call it, where Mr. Blandino wasn't there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how many times was that?
Probably about the same, probably about 10 to 15.
Okay. Okay. The mail, you said, you specifically said you found some mail inside the room that you attribute to Mr. Blandino, correct?
Yes, sir.
What was the address? Who was it addressed to?
To Kim Blandino
Yeah.
at
What happened?
441 North 16th Street.
Weren't they addressed to Kim Blandino care of?
I don't remember it being care of. Well,
Okay.
it could have been, but
Could have been, okay.
I don't remember.
Fair enough, fair enough. The night of the incident, which I believe was September 16th, 2022, when Mr. Blandino was pulled over, how did you get there?
By vehicle?
And I'm sorry, I mean, how did you come about to come to the scene of that? You weren't a responding officer, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. How did you get involved in that incident?
I was notified by patrol that they had Mr. Blandino stopped.
Why were you notified by patrol? Is that something normal?
Yes.
How so?
If I have a notification that I want to be contacted, if somebody is contacted by law enforcement, then they would notify me.
Okay, so you had put a notification into the system. I don't know if it was Scope or NCI. I don't know what the system is, but whatever system.
It would have been Scope, sir.
Scope.
Yes,
So you put into Scope an indication that if this guy comes up, that you want to be told.
If he comes up, no. If he's contacted by law enforcement, yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the semantics. That if law enforcement had an interaction with Mr. Blandino, you wanted to be called.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, you were very invested and very interested in what was going on with Mr. Blandino. Would that be fair to say?
No.
No? How often do you put your name into the system so that people call you out to a scene that you actually respond to? How often does that happen?
Hundreds of times throughout my career.
Okay, and that was a 26-year career.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So hundreds of times could be like a couple times a year, right?
Depends on the case and the situation.
Yeah, okay. All right. Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Redirect.
No.
It's free to go?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony, sir. Please don't discuss your testimony with any other witnesses at this time.
Thank you, Judge.
State.
Nothing further.
State rest. All right, defense.
We
Sometimes-
rest against the
Go ahead.
rebuttal, Your Honor. Whatever.
All right. Exhibits, I need them all in, unless you want to refer to them in closing. Mr. Dickerson, you wish to make a closing argument at this time? No reserve?
We'll reserve.
Mr. Gersten,
I apologize, Your Honor.
I understand.
My client was
In a minute or two?
I'm sorry?
For closing?
No. My client was in my ear. I didn't hear what you actually said.
I'm saying a minute or two for closing argument.
Yeah.
Closing. All right.
Yeah, we're ready.
State saving is rebutting, saving for rebutting.
Okay, so they're not going right now. They want me to start.
You can go if you want to reply.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. All right, Your Honor. Very simply, Mr. Blandino has been charged with two statutes, those being 482.385 and 483.550. I would like to start with the NRS 483.550. So the first thing I'm going to say is I do not believe that the state has proved beyond a reasonable doubt all elements of that particular statute. Again, it was unlawful to be without a valid driver's license. Now, again, you heard Mr. Blandino testify that he believes he had a valid driver's license from the Kingdom of Israel. It is what it is, Your Honor, with regard to that. But, again, if you believe that Mr. Blandino violated that statute, if you believe the state has brought up enough evidence to beyond a reasonable doubt, I just want to speak to the idea that, again, section number 2, and this is the statute that was in place before January 1st of 23. As I mentioned, it was changed in January of 23, such that section 2 talks about the court shall require any person convicted of violating this section to obtain a valid driver's license or produce a notice of disqualification from the department. So if you believe that is a valid driver's license, again, they have not proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. If you do not, he has produced, and it was actually put into evidence by the state itself, the document from the DMV that was a notice of disqualification from the department. As a result, he's not in violation of the statute. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. Even if you believe he's in violation of the statute, as I mentioned previously on my motion to dismiss, that there's no other punishment contained in the statute itself. Our schema, our statutory scheme, and again, this, Your Honor, I just want to make sure, this is the one prior to January 1st of 2023. Our statutory scheme says basically, if you're convicted of a misdemeanor, okay, and the statute is silent on a punishment, we have default provisions, and that's 193, whatever it is. If you want me, I can, NRS 193.150. That would be that statute. our premise here is that it doesn't apply because the statute provides for the actual punishment in the statute. And to bolster that, I can explain to you that NRS 483-550 post January 1st, so 23, actually says it's unlawful. Basically, a person who violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor. Okay, so we have a concept. The legislature.
So you're saying prior to the 2023.
Prior to
It said
2023, it did not say that it was a misdemeanor. It became a misdemeanor post 2023, post the incident we're talking about. So in that sense, again, our statutory scheme says basically either you can require him to get a driver's license or he provides a notice of disqualification. He provided a notice of disqualification. I understand, and Mr. Dickerson is a zealous representative for the state. He doesn't buy whatever it is, but it is a legitimate governmental record where they gave him a notice of disqualification. Okay, and I don't think he's proved any fraud or deceit in the production of that. So, again, for purposes of that statute, we don't believe there was proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Blandino violated it. However, if you do believe he violated it, the worst that can happen is either you require him to get a driver's license or he produces a notice of disqualification, which he has done and the state has entered as evidence. So right there, I think that ends that prosecution on that particular statute. With regard to the second charge, which is the registration of a non-resident vehicle.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Again, Your Honor, NRS 483.385, the registration of a non-resident owner, it basically is not required. But again, under that particular statute, under Section 6, okay, if you don't qualify as a I'm sorry, let me back up, Your Honor. Basically, it is our posit that the state has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Blandino is a resident. He has maintained from day one, he has maintained throughout this entire trial, he is a non-resident, okay? Anything from, he has an identification out of Arizona. He has property or a place to go in Montana. And he believes, as he's mentioned over and over again, that he is a citizen of the Kingdom of Israel. He has produced a passport that he claims shows that. So given all of this, and that, again, he has been under the care and custody of the state of Nevada as an inmate or probationer, etc., for all this time. He has basically said he can't leave, and this is not his residence. Residence is a legal term, Your Honor, and it has to do with where you intend to reside. Mr. Blandino has repeatedly said this is not where he intends to reside. He's taking care of Ms. Pendergrass's affairs. He's under the care of PNP, etc. That he's just not a resident. Regardless, Your Honor. So again, we would say they have not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is a resident. As a result, it is an inapplicable statute. And again, remember, the registration we're talking about, he's not driving around unregistered. He's not doing that. He's driving around in a car that is permanently registered because it's a perk, a boon of having a residency in Montana. So it was a completely registered vehicle. I asked the officers during cross-examination, was he illegal for purposes of registration? No, it was just this idea that he's not a resident. So again, the state has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he violated the statute. However, if Your Honor gets past that, Section 6 of NRS 482.385 says a person who violates the provisions of subsection 1, 3, or 5 is guilty of a misdemeanor and except as otherwise provided in this subsection shall be punished by a fine of $1,000. Okay? The fine imposed pursuant to this subsection is in addition to any fine or penalty imposed for the other alleged violation or events for which the vehicle was halted or its driver arrested pursuant to subsection 4, which is inapplicable here. So, at its worst, Your Honor, at its worst, this particular statute exposes Mr. Blandino to a $1,000 fine. At its worst, there is no remanding. There's no time ascribed to this. And here's where there's a little bit of a problem, Your Honor, because and whatever you want to call them, pre-trials, hearings, whatever, Mr. Dickerson has repeatedly said that the state was seeking jail time, and neither of these statutes allow for jail time. So again, Mr. Blandino wants me to obviously put forward that is bad faith on the part of the state. They repeatedly said he was going to face jail time. He was going to face time. Nowhere in either of the charges, nowhere in either of the statutes is there an allowance for actual incarceration. There is produce a document that either produce a driver's license or produce this disqualification, or and then in this next statute, I'm going to fine you $1,000. That's the worst that can happen to Mr. Blandino. There is no time allowed. And unfortunately, that is what Mr. Dickerson was calling for the entire time. It was on the record, et cetera. So, given that, again, we don't believe the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he is liable for any of this. If Your Honor believes he is liable, he has given you the document of disqualification in the first statute. That's all that there is. And in the second statute, again, up to $1,000. That's what you can do. If you find him to have been at fault, overarching everything, you heard Mr. Blandino testify, there was no evil design. There was no intent here to obfuscate, to game the system, anything of that nature.
So no mens rea.
I'm sorry?
No mens rea.
No mens rea, Your Honor. I mean,
As we refer back to law school.
I teach that in my course at UNLV, Your Honor. I got a little, but yes, where's the mens rea? Now, again, look, I'll just be honest. You could argue these are strict liability statutes, but again, there is a particular statute out there, Your Honor, NRS 194.010, and it talks about persons capable of committing crimes. Section 7 says persons who committed the act or made the omission charge through misfortune or by accident when it appears that there was no evil design, intention, or culpable negligence. I'm in a tough spot here, Your Honor. I mean, I don't want to call Mr. Blandino a sad sack, but he believes these things that he's doing. He believes he's doing them in the name of his God, and they're part of his religious beliefs. And I understand, the Jamestown Massacre was the same thing, not to conflate them, but Mr. Blandino does not believe, he has no evil design. There has been no intent. And of course, with the registration, it was a legally registered car. I mean, he wasn't trying to beat anything. So, all of that included, Your Honor, I believe that Mr. Blandino, the state has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Blandino is liable for the criminal acts he's charged with.
All right, Mr. Dickerson, your reply.
Thank you, Your Honor. The evidence is overwhelming in this traffic trial as to Mr. Blandino's guilt. Mr. Blandino even admits that he didn't have a driver's license from any state, not from the state of Nevada, not from anywhere else. That what he was purporting to be his driver's license, he created at Kinko's and FedEx. The argument that defense counsel wants to proffer of a mistake of fact, apparently, like a mistake of fact argument, it is belied by the record and the evidence that is included here. I think that what they're trying to shoehorn in is a mistake of law, apparent defense, which is not a defense at all. Mr. Blandino testified extensively about how he's done research into the law. He's looked at these things for years. And further, we look at all the paperwork, and defense has made a huge point of it, his efforts to conceal his address on the basis of residency by putting care up further shows his intent. Nonetheless, there's no specific intent required for this crime. There's no intent to violate the law required for this crime. Merely the fact that he did any of this knowingly is enough. He did all of this knowingly. That being the act of operating a motor vehicle on the roads in Clark County without a driver's license. That's what he did. That's the bottom line. The evidence shows that his reporting address for P&P has been maintained the entire time at 441 North 16th Street. Detective Mead has seen him there 15 to 20 times from 2016 until 2023. Search warrant was served at the residence in 2019 with the indication that he was living there at the time his documents were found there. He even indicates that this Montana thing that he has going on, that's not even his residence. He says somebody else owns it, but I can go there whenever I want. This is, again, the defense here is frankly ridiculous. He's trying to pull the wool over the court's eyes by, for years, making efforts to hide his actual address or hide his actual residence in Clark County, Nevada, as a United States citizen in an effort, a deliberate effort to try to avoid any criminal liability for anything in this state or with the U.S. government. Mr. Blandino, just like anybody else, is subject to the laws of this state. And with that, we take a look at the crimes. As far as the driver's license, I agree. He's subject to the penalty in there, which says get a driver's license or provide a notice of disqualification. And what has been admitted into evidence is not a notice of disqualification. Moreover, that comes after conviction. What we have in the record is a notice of denial or disqualification. Nothing about this indicates that he's disqualified from having a license in the state of Nevada. The evidence is clear that he didn't have one, that these documents he created in Kinko's are not a valid license, and that he was operating a vehicle on our roadway, and that he'd been living here for years before this. He is a resident of the state of Nevada, and it's not something that he's under some sort of coercion to be here because he's on probation. You heard that even in 2019, he wasn't on parole, right? He wasn't on parole when he was living at that address. 2016, he's living at that address as well. This is voluntary. Further, as you pointed out to him, he's indicated that he's employed in the state. He indicated to the Division of Parole and Probation in his required reporting documents 30 days before, at least 30 days before this event in September of 2022, that he was employed in this state as a home caregiver for Evelyn Pendergrast, who lived at that address. So he's conducting business in the state, and he is residing there at that address, taking care of her. It's uncontroverted that he needed to get a driver's license if he was going to be operating those vehicles in this state. And further, what I would say is that when convicted, he should be ordered to get a driver's license because he's
And I guess
clearly not
I want to
disqualified.
stop you real quickly. So what are under the old penalties? I mean, here's the problem I've got. AB 116 comes in and says, we're gonna make things civil infractions. That's why we have to then designate whether they're misdemeanors or not. Because the statute says that if not designated as a penalty of a misdemeanor, felony, or a gross misdemeanor, it will be considered a civil infraction for all driving violations. That's why they have to then designate them as misdemeanors. They did then go in 2023 and designate certain things as misdemeanors so that it then goes to the criminal division. If it's not designated, it then goes to civil infractions. The legislature's intent was to change things so that nobody is going to be convicted of a misdemeanor for a driving infraction they figure is a minor infraction. So that doesn't prevent you from going to school and getting a job and things like that. So they have to then designate this is a misdemeanor. If not designated as a misdemeanor, it's a civil infraction. So under the statute that he is in under, I would assume it'd be a misdemeanor because they designated it as a misdemeanor in 2023.
Yeah, and because
So what is the
penalty is
penalty?
not provided, right? Here it indicates that the court shall require. It does not indicate that that is the penalty, right? It does not specifically indicate, as Mr. Gersten argues, that this is the penalty for the charge. This is just a requirement that the court has, so it would fall under the catch-all of being a misdemeanor, since it indicates that it's an unlawful act. Specifically in subsection 1, it is unlawful. The court just has to order that as part of it. It does not say that that is the penalty, so it's not prescribed in the statute. It falls to the catch-all.
So the penalties of a misdemeanor are applicable.
Yes, that's what I would suggest to this court. That would be the accurate reading of the law. Further, we looked at
Mr.
subsection.
Gersten,
We looked at subsection.
I get the final say, but I'm gonna let you jump in on that one.
Yeah, I just want to say, if we're having an argument
Stop
about
for a
this,
second, Mr. Dickerson.
if we're having an argument, I'd just like to, like, again, Your Honor, like I said, the court, the statute says shall. The court shall do this. That's punishment. I mean, you're required to require what's going on, that, shall. So, again,
That's under the new one.
No, it's under the old one as well.
Well, I'm saying it shall be, or is a misdemeanor, but that's the new statute.
No, but again, Your Honor, if I may, just one moment so I can pull the statute. Under the old statute, NRS 483.550, section 2, it literally says, the court shall require any person convicted of violating this section to obtain a valid driver's license or produce notice of disqualification from the department. So within the statute, it provides the penalty, which is that the court shall require. I mean, this isn't DMV versus, in a DUI situation where there's divergent paths that could happen. It's telling the court, if you find this is a violation, this is what you gotta hand down.
Can I continue?
Well, hold on, I mean, I'll let you make that argument, because I did ask him that question on there.
Well, that's all I want to say, Your
But
Honor.
it was considered back then a misdemeanor. Then in 2023, when they have to designate, if it's not designated as a misdemeanor, felony or gross misdemeanor,
Sure.
it's a civil infraction.
And I
So then
understand,
they have to go through and name all of the ones they determine are
and I understand
misdemeanors.
that, Your Honor.
So the history of the legislature's intent was that this was to remain a misdemeanor.
And that's
Which means under the penalties of misdemeanor, I'm entitled to order 6 months,
only,
$1,000 fine.
Your Honor, if I can just have 1 second to pull the statute. And that was that 193,
Well, let me have Mr. Dickerson finish. I'm gonna let you do a quick response, and Mr. Dickerson will have the final.
So, to that point, Judge, that is not prescribing the penalty for the statute, so it still goes under the catch-all, because we look for, like, for instance, NRS 4823961, which is non-resident business permit. That indicates the penalties within the statute. And so we looked at subsection 5 of that. The way that the legislature writes that is very different. It said, a person who violates the provisions of this section is guilty of a misdemeanor and shall be punished. And then it indicates, for the first offense, a fine of not more than $500, right? So there, the legislature specifically indicated, not the court shall do this, but the person shall be punished. It's clearly defining that that's a punishment statute, which is not contained within that driver's license statute. It is just another requirement on top of it being a misdemeanor under the catch-all that the court has to order him to get a driver's license or show that he's actually disqualified. He's not showing that he's disqualified. And then further to their argument regarding NRS 482.385 subsection 6, same thing there, right? So the legislature has said that the person is guilty of a misdemeanor. And then there was some emphasis put on by Mr. Gersten of except as otherwise provided in this subsection, which, mind you, finding him guilty of the misdemeanor is in the subsection, which is also specifically enumerated in another statute as having punishment subscribed to it. But then it goes on that the person shall be punished by a $1,000 fine. This is of note because when we looked at the punishments for misdemeanors under NRS 193.150, it indicates that the person can be punished by 6 months in jail or $1,000 fine or both. So where in this statute it's indicating to the court you have to impose that $1,000 fine for this offense. But because it's a misdemeanor, he also can be sent to jail. And that's to the judicial discretion that you have. But the fine is something that would be mandatory. Neither of those statutes prohibit misdemeanor punishment. It's clear that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of both of these crimes, indicating that he's living at that address for years. He can't tell you where he's a resident of. He's a resident of nowhere, apparently, of a country that doesn't even exist, only the one that he made himself an ambassador of. So with that, Your Honor, I ask that you find him guilty of both offenses. This is a pervasive problem that we can address afterwards, but my request for punishment would come afterwards as well.
All right,
Your Honor, may I just make one point,
I'm gonna,
please?
it's out of the ordinary, but I'll allow, because I did ask questions regarding the.
I understand.
So I'll allow that, but Mr. Dickerson's gonna have the final.
It's one point, Your Honor, just one point. NRS 193.150 is
One
the
five or 050?
150.
All right.
193.150 says if you're convicted of a misdemeanor, this is the punishment. And then it says, unless the statute in force at the time of commission of such misdemeanor prescribed a different penalty. Okay? So it's our contention that both of these statutes prescribe a different penalty. That is, the driver's license 483.550 says you either got to get a driver's license or produce a notice of disqualification. And then the registration literally says a person who violates the provisions of this subsection, guilty of a misdemeanor and is except as otherwise provided in this subsection, if there aren't any other provisions, shall be punished by a fine of $1,000.
All right.
So neither of those statutes allow for incarceration.
Mr. Dixon, your response to that and the final say.
My points have been made as far as what this indicates. This is the statute indicating that the fine is mandatory, it has to happen. But because it indicates before that he is guilty of a misdemeanor, he has the full penalties of the misdemeanor available to him. It just makes the fine mandatory. As to the driver's license offense, that too does not indicate punishment at all. Nothing about that statute indicates punishment. It just indicates what the court has to require upon conviction, and that's getting a driver's license or actually showing that he's disqualified, which he has not done. He's guilty of both. He doesn't get to get out of it by having some denial here. And also on that.
The court, having heard the testimony on this matter, having reviewed the testimony and the documents provided, the evidence provided, the testimony given by the witnesses, including Mr. Blandino himself, the court does find the state has met its burden at this time, beyond a reasonable doubt. As to the charge of count 2, resident failing to obtain a Nevada registration, I do acknowledge that Mr. Blandino was residing here at the time. He indicated his employer was Home Health Care for EV. He indicated he was residing here. There was testimony given that in 2019 he was residing at that residence, at the same residence, whether he's going back and forth on visiting or vacation or some of that. His residence is 441 North 16th Street. We'd seen Blandino there numerous times from 2016 to 2023. 2019, there were trucks at the residence. The trucks were the same trucks that were stopped in 2022, September 16, 2022. It needed to be registered at that time. It was not registered. Further, and the court does find that the state has met its burden on beyond a reasonable doubt of driving without a valid license. The information provided by Mr. Blandino at the time was that he did not have a valid driver's license. The indication from the Boulder City, that discovery, Mr. Blandino indicated that at one time he did have a license from Arizona and Nevada, so he understood the requirements required for that. That being said, finding that Mr. Blandino is guilty of these charges, and also NRS 483.141, residents define your employer. It defines where you consider your employer or where your employment is. Mr. Blandino indicated that his employment was taking care of Ms. Evie at 441 North 16th Street. Penalties, at this time, Mr. Dickerson, your argument for penalties.
So, Mr. Blandino is pervasive for years at these exact crimes and trying to skirt the law. Looking at just the justice court records alone, we're looking at 2008, 2010, 2010, multiple in 2011, multiple in 2012, 2019, and then ultimately brings us here. All of these, 2010, 2008, and 2011, 2012, non-resident vehicle registration, both in 2012. Driving without a valid license in 2011. Insurance required and then pled down to illegal parking in 2011. Unlawful transfer of license plates and unregistered vehicle in 2011. Failure to obtain Nevada registration in 2011. Failure to obtain Nevada registration in 2011 and 2010. Driving without a valid license. Residency plates within 60 days required. Further, in 2010, more the same, and then in 2011, resident to obtain driver's license within 30 days. Mr. Blandino has purposely been doing this for years. This is different than somebody who just comes before your honor, has been here for 60 days and didn't get their driver's license or register their vehicle. Mr. Blandino does this to play games. He does this to play games with the court. He does this to play games all around because he gets a rise out of trying to figure out how he can skirt around the law and what he can do to get in here to entertain himself by presenting some legal argument that he's a citizen of a country that doesn't even exist, an ambassador, self-promoted and self-proclaimed, in fact, by the documents that he created at FedEx. This is the point where it has to stop. He has to be ordered to get a driver's license, no doubt, because what he's been doing for years just obviously isn't working, and he's clearly trying to pretend like he can't get one. But he does need to serve jail time. He needs to serve jail time for these crimes because this is not his lapse of judgment. This is all, in fact, purposeful. For years he has been doing this, Your Honor, and you even see that he sends the Boulder City City Attorney a false document as his driver's license, which they bid off on all those years ago and dismissed the case against him. Further, I want to pull up his record real quick, if I can, with the city of Las Vegas as well. So, Mr. Blandino has had traffic citations in the city of Las Vegas, multiple in 2013, one in 2012, one in 2010, one in 2018. Ultimately, in several of those, at least one of those, he was convicted because that's what his last felony trial was based on, the same type of thing. Also, driving without a license being one of those, and then ultimately him going after the judge who found him guilty in that case as a result. But it again shows it's not just here in Clark County, it's also in the city of Las Vegas. These things have
It's the
been
same place.
two
Clark
different,
County and the city of Las Vegas they're the same thing.
two different
Well,
jurisdictions.
they're two
But it's the same.
Geographically, yes, but the legal
Fair enough.
acronym is two separate entities.
These courts have been dealing with this same type of nonsense for years. And so that's why I asked that there be jail time that is imposed and jail time that is suspended. I would ask for 6 months to be imposed and 6 months to be suspended. And then I would ask for the other requirements that he get a driver's license and that he get this vehicle registered in the state of Nevada and a $1,000 fine that's required on that as well.
Mr. Dickerson, I'm sorry. Mr. Dickerson?
Thank you, Your Honor. And it's literally the same argument I made prior, which is the statutes at issue we believe do not allow for jail time. The one statute for the driver's license is get this document. Mr. Dickerson doesn't agree with the document, but again, it's from the DMV. I think there's a certified copy. He put it in. You know, I don't understand his argument that it's not valid. There's something wrong with it. Whatever. If the DMV accepted it, there you go. He got his thing. He got his notice of disqualification. He's disqualified from getting a driver's license. So, right, I mean, basically he can't drive now. Okay, he doesn't have a driver's until he does, fine. But it doesn't require jail time. And with regard to the registration, again, Your Honor, it says you can fine him up to $1,000. It doesn't say you can fine him up to $1,000 and do this. Because again, if we go back to NRS 193.150, unless the statute enforced at the time of the commission of such misdemeanor prescribed a different penalty. A different penalty is prescribed for the registration. And again, Your Honor, remember, it's this, you know, Mr. Dickerson is claiming, you know, he's some wild man driving around, unregistered, uninsured. People pick up tickets, we get that. He had a legitimately registered vehicle. You know, it was legitimately registered in Montana, but that again, you found him guilty, but to then incarcerate him when all the statute says is you can fine him $1,000, just doesn't seem.
Or 6 months in jail.
No, again, Your Honor, it doesn't seem to say that. Okay, I mean it says if you violate it, $1,000. But think about what we're saying, Your Honor. You know, here's a gentleman who got out of his car to warn somebody their light was out. He had a registered vehicle, and now you want to put him in jail. Not you, I mean, the state wants to put him in jail for that. And that just seems excessive, heavy-handed, and antithetical to the statutes and our statutory schema as it stands today.
Ms. Gersten, if I'm ever in trouble, you're the first one I call.
Thank you, Your Honor.
If, hopefully you'll be arguing St. Peter to get me in, because
I don't think I'll have to do that.
your arguments, I can't. I understand the, I'm certainly saying you've done a great job on this matter. I don't mean to downplay what you've done, because you can bring up some unique arguments on this matter. I think Mr. Blandino understands what he's doing. I think there's an issue there. At one point, I thought maybe he doesn't fully understand, but I agree with Mr. Dickerson that he understands what's going on. It's been going on for a while. He has a driver's license. He has a driver's license in Arizona. He has a driver's license in Nevada. He seems to take pleasure in filing and doing all these things. There's orders that he's not to file in district court. He's a litigious litigant. And I can't punish a person for believing in what he believes in, but there's laws in here, there's statutes, and they're specifically there for reasons. To make sure that people are registered, to make sure that they're driving around, to make sure that they're not driving without insurance so that somebody doesn't get hurt, to make sure we know what vehicles are there, for tax purposes even. You know, if you're living here, you're residing here, you're working here, you need to pay your taxes here too, because that you're benefiting from the roads that are being maintained, from the parks that are being built, and that's why we have people who have registrations and things like that. This is one of those reasons. Now, as much as it's been a pain in the butt to hear these cases, I don't believe that a jail time at this time is appropriate. But my order without teeth will not apply to Mr. Blandino unless I put some teeth on this. And that's why I'm going to do this. As to the charge of driving with no registration, $250 fine or 17 hours of community service, 30 days in Clark County Detention Center, I will suspend that 30 days. As to a driver's license, $250 fine, 30-day suspended sentence, or 17 hours of community service that is consecutive. So it's a $500 fine or 33 hours of community service. Both are suspended, 30 days suspended. They will be consecutive if ever imposed. You have a 10-day notice to appeal on this matter. You can file that within 10 days. Transcripts will be provided. You can provide that. You will stay on as the appellate attorney until the point comes that you wish to get out, because you may or may not, I'm not questioning. As an appellate attorney, you may want something else, I understand. Ineffective assistance counsel, all that stuff comes up. So, you know, if you want, I think district court or whatever will allow you to get off there as an appellate attorney. I think under the restrictions, we have to file some notices of appeal that you're required to do so. So that is your requirement, but other than that.
Yes, sir.
I do believe that it has to be suspended sentence ordered, because if he doesn't do it, and what he's been doing for the last couple of years, I think he needs some restrictions. He will serve that time. If there is no appeal that overturns my conviction, and I'm ordering him to do this, if he fails to do it, he will serve every day of that 30 days on count 1 and or count 2, and every day on the count 3. He will serve every day of that 30 days if he fails to do the requirements. Do you understand, Mr. Blandino? The answer is yes or no. Anything more than that, and we're talking about contempt. All right, now, I will give a
Can we get those
6
penalties
month,
one more time, Your Honor?
I'm sorry,
Can we get those penalties one more time?
$250, and I'm saying count 2 because count 1 was dismissed. Count 2 is a $250 fine, 30 days suspended. Count 3, $250 fine or 30 days suspended. He has a right to do community service. 17 hours on count 1, 17 hours on count 3, all of it consecutive. Total fine is $500, 33 hours of community service, 60 days suspended, 30 on 1, 30 on 2, all of it concurrent, consecutive. All of them run consecutive, 10-day notice of appeal. Anything further of this court at this time?
I think we need the order
6
that he gets the driver's license.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
And I would also mention that, again, going back to the original argument under subsection 6, that it seems that the registration has to be $1,000 fine.
I don't think it has to be 1,000, I thought it was 210.
So the, under registration of a vehicle for somebody violating it under subsection 6, that was my position, is that when it says he shall be punished by a fine of 1,000, that it makes it mandatory.
I disagree with that. I'm going to order the 250 on that one. If there's something different, you can say that. Under NRS 483.550, although he's done it January 29, 2024, the conviction, once he's convicted, he is then required to go get a notice of denial or disqualification regarding a driver's license. He's required to get that. I have a 6-month return court date on this for all requirements to be included,
In that
including
order,
another notice of denial or disqualification.
or driver's license.
That's for the driver's license.
Yeah, so he either needs to get a driver's license,
Or
or not a denial,
show proof of notice of denial or disqualification.
notice of a disqualification.
Yes. So he either has to, under that statute, he either has to get the driver's license or another notice of denial or disqualification. Now, if he feels that he doesn't need to provide documentation to the DMV, which is proper documentation, that'll be an argument. There'll be a problem there. The state can argue that he is not following through on the statute, which is he's to attempt to get it. And if he fails to provide documentation to them, willfully fails, if he doesn't have it, that's one thing. If he doesn't want to produce it, that becomes another issue. He's required to get a driver's license or show notice of denial or disqualification.
So the notice of denial does not apply. That does not get him out of it. He got denied here because he didn't take the proper.
That's what I'm saying. If he
So he
comes
has to
in,
get disqualification.
if he comes in and says that if he doesn't provide the proper documentation,
Your Honor, what Mr. Dickerson is sort of alluding to is the title of the document is notice of denial or disqualification. So the DMV just fills this out. So what I don't want Mr. Blandino to come back is,
he may be disqualified because of a medical reason.
no, I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that the document itself is entitled the same.
Yeah.
Mr. Dickerson is saying, no, I want disqualification. I don't want to see this document that says denial or disqualification, but they don't have that document.
The document that we've got under
Okay.
RS 483550, he's got to go, but he's got to provide the documents too. In other words, when they requested to provide this document,
And here's the intriguing part, Your Honor. Again, I know where this is going to go. My client has been requesting the return of his passports, which is his only documentation.
where are those at? Are
These are fake
in
documents.
this document, in this,
Those are invalid, and those are not real documents, those are not gonna qualify. And we, those are, the way that he's using those is criminal. And so he wants to go and further use them in a criminal manner, is what he's indicating here, and commit a fraud on a state agency. We will prosecute for that.
6-month return court date.
October,
Right.
sorry.
Go ahead.
October 7th, 17, 8:30.
I got the exhibits up here, the ones that have not been admitted are court exhibits.
did.
All right,
I apologize, what was the return time?
8:30.
8:30, thank you.
all right.
Can I ask a question?
October 17th.
So this is
He ordered